Hello, English learners. Welcome back to English Pods. I am Leonardo.
Whoa! Good morning, students. And I'm Elizabeth.
Today, we are diving into something a little different, like really different.
Different good or different,
Oh, definitely different good. Today, we are exploring an essential topic for anyone looking to excel in English.
Welcome to your personalized deep dive all about stress management. So you sent us a really interesting mix here. You've got articles and research studies, and even some personal notes, it looks like. So we're going to unpack it all. We're going to highlight the most useful and insightful points for you.
Yeah, what I found particularly interesting was the variety of stress-busting techniques that you've been looking into. It's like everything from those quick fixes to like longer-term lifestyle changes. It really shows a commitment to tackling this from all angles.
Absolutely, and that's smart, because as I was reading through this research, it became clear that not all stress is the same.
Right.
We've got those everyday things, like deadlines or traffic jams.
Right. That's acute stress. It's like your body's natural fight or flight response kicking in.
Right.
So in those moments, hormones like adrenaline and cortisol, they surge, preparing you to deal with that perceived threat. It's like your internal alarm system going off.
Oh, yeah. But then there's that other kind of stress, the one that just lingers. That's what really stood out to me in the research that you sent.
Exactly. Chronic stress. Think of it like this. Your body's alarm system is stuck in the on position. So that constant flood of stress hormones can have serious consequences for your health.
So it's more than just, feeling overwhelmed every now and then. What are we talking about here in terms of health risks?
Well, the research that you sent highlights some pretty compelling connections between chronic stress and heart disease. It turns out that prolonged exposure to those stress hormones can actually damage your blood vessels, making them more susceptible to plaque buildup.
Wow, that's not something you want to mess with. And it's not just our hearts that take a hit, right?
No. Chronic stress weakens the immune system, too. You know how when you're stressed, you're more likely to get a cold? Well, there's a scientific reason for that. Cortisol, that stress hormone we talked about, actually suppresses the immune response, making you more vulnerable to infections.
So basically, stress is setting us up for a whole cascade of health problems. But you also flagged some research on the impact of chronic stress on our mental well-being. What did you find there?
One of the studies you provided really dives deep into the connection between chronic stress and burnout. It's not just about feeling tired. Burnout is characterized by emotional exhaustion, cynicism, and a sense of reduced personal accomplishment. It's like your mental and emotional resources have been completely depleted.
That sounds incredibly draining. And it makes sense that chronic stress would contribute to those feelings of overwhelm and exhaustion.
Yeah, it also seems to have a significant impact on anxiety and depression. Several studies you provided suggest that chronic stress can actually change the structure and function of the brain, particularly in areas that regulate mood and emotions.
That's a bit scary to think about, realizing how deeply stress can affect us both physically and mentally. And from your notes, it looks like chronic stress can even impact our relationships, causing problems with those closest to us.
Yes, and that makes sense. When we're constantly stressed, we tend to be more irritable, short-tempered, and just less patient with others. We might withdraw socially, or find it difficult to connect on an emotional level. And over time, this can create distance and tension in our relationships. Yeah, it's like that saying, you can't pour from an empty cup. When we're chronically stressed, we have very little left to give to others, even those we care about most.
So recognizing the signs of chronic stress early on seems crucial. And in your notes, you actually highlighted some of the less obvious ways that stress can show up. What should we be looking out for?
Well, alongside the classic signs like headaches and fatigue you mentioned, changes in sleep patterns. The research you sent indicates a strong link between chronic stress and insomnia. Like your mind is racing. You can't shut off those worrisome thoughts. And sleep becomes elusive.
I've definitely been there. It's like a vicious cycle. You're stressed, so you can't sleep. And then the lack of sleep just makes you even more stressed.
Exactly. And on the other end of the spectrum, some people actually experience an increased need for sleep when they're chronically stressed. It's like their body is craving rest to try and cope with the overload. Either way, a sudden change in your sleep patterns can be a red flag.
So paying attention to those subtle shifts in our bodies is important. What about changes in appetite? I know some people turn to comfort food when they're stressed, while others lose their appetite entirely.
You're right. Both responses are common. Stress can disrupt the hormones that regulate hunger and satiety, leading to those fluctuations in appetite. The research you flagged even suggests a link between chronic stress and changes in gut bacteria, which can further impact digestion and overall health.
Wow, it's amazing how interconnected everything is. Stress really does have a ripple effect throughout our entire system.
It does, and sometimes those ripples manifest in behavioral changes. You might find yourself withdrawing from social events, feeling less motivated to engage in activities you used to enjoy, or procrastinating on tasks.
Oh, procrastination is definitely my go-to stress response. It's like I'm avoiding the problem, but then the looming deadline just adds to the stress.
Yeah, it's a common coping mechanism. But as you said, it often backfires. And then there are the unhealthy coping strategies that some people turn to,
Right.
like excessive alcohol consumption,
Mhm.
or spending hours mindlessly scrolling through social media.
It's like we're trying to numb ourselves from the stress, but those quick fixes often create more problems in the long run.
Exactly. The key takeaway here is awareness. By paying attention to those subtle signs, both physical and behavioral, you can catch stress early on and start implementing strategies to manage it before it spirals out of control.
And speaking of strategies, you've compiled a fantastic stress-busting toolkit for our listener, drawing from all the various sources that they provided. I love that concept because it suggests we have options, different tools that we can choose from depending on the situation.
Exactly. It's not a one-size-fits-all approach. There are techniques for immediate relief when you need to calm down quickly.
Mhm.
And then there are longer-term strategies for building resilience and preventing stress from becoming chronic in the first place.
So let's start with those quick fixes. What are some go-to techniques for those moments when stress is hitting you like a tidal wave?
One technique that comes up repeatedly in the research you sent is deep breathing. It's simple, effective, and you can do it anywhere, anytime. The key is to take slow, deep breaths, focusing on the sensation of your breath entering and leaving your body.
It seems almost too easy, but there's actually some fascinating science behind it, right?
There is. Deep breathing triggers what's called the relaxation response. It activates your parasympathetic nervous system, which is responsible for slowing your heart rate, lowering your blood pressure, and essentially calming your body down.
Mm.
It's like flipping a switch from fight or flight to rest and digest.
So it's not just about getting more oxygen into your system, it's about sending a signal to your brain that the danger has passed.
Exactly. It's like tricking your body into thinking it's safe to relax.
I love that. Deep breathing is a tool I use all the time, especially when I'm feeling overwhelmed. Another technique that caught my eye in your research is progressive muscle relaxation.
Ah, yes. That's a great one for releasing physical tension. The basic idea is to systematically tense and relax different muscle groups in your body. It helps you become aware of where you're holding tension and consciously release it.
It sounds a little odd, but I've tried it before and it's surprisingly effective. You don't realize how much tension you're carrying in your muscles until you consciously let it go.
And sometimes the simplest solution is the most effective. Simply taking a short break from whatever is stressing you out can make a world of difference.
I think people underestimate the power of a break. We get so caught up in our to-do lists and deadlines that we forget to pause and recharge. But even 5 minutes of stepping away from your desk, stretching or taking a walk can shift your perspective and reduce those feelings of overwhelm.
Absolutely. It's like hitting the reset button on your nervous system. And if you're feeling really overwhelmed, grounding techniques can be incredibly helpful.
Okay, grounding techniques. Can you explain those for us? What exactly does it mean to ground yourself?
Grounding techniques are designed to bring you back to the present moment. When your mind is racing with anxious thoughts, they help you reconnect with your body and your surroundings, using your senses to anchor you to the here and now.
So it's about shifting your focus away from those spiraling thoughts and tuning into the physical world around you.
Exactly. One simple technique is the 5-4-3-2-1 method. You notice 5 things you can see, 4 things you can touch, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, and 1 thing you can taste. It's a quick way to engage your senses and bring your attention back to the present moment.
That's a great tool to have in your back pocket. It's like a mental anchor to keep you from drifting away into a sea of anxiety. But I'm also curious about those longer-term strategies for managing stress. What are some ways we can build resilience and prevent stress from becoming a chronic problem?
Well, one of the most powerful things you can do is prioritize your overall health. The research you sent highlights the importance of regular exercise, a balanced diet, and sufficient sleep. These 3 pillars work together to create a strong foundation for physical and mental well-being.
I know it sounds cliche, but it's true. When I'm eating while exercising regularly and getting enough sleep, I feel like I can handle stress so much better.
It makes sense, right? Exercise releases endorphins, those feel-good chemicals that naturally boost your mood and reduce stress. A balanced diet provides your body with the nutrients it needs to function optimally. And sleep allows your body and mind to rest and recharge.
It's like giving your body the resources it needs to fight back against stress. And you also flagged some interesting research on the benefits of mindfulness and meditation.
Yes, these practices are becoming increasingly popular for stress management. And for good reason. Mindfulness is about paying attention to the present moment without judgment, noticing your thoughts and feelings, without getting swept away by them.
I've tried meditation before, but I often find my mind wandering. Is it normal to have trouble staying focused?
Absolutely. It's a practice, not a perfection. The key is to gently guide your attention back to your breath, or whatever you're focusing on, whenever you notice your mind wandering. Over time, you'll find that you're able to stay present for longer periods.
So it's like training a muscle. The more you practice, the stronger your mindfulness muscle becomes.
Exactly. And the research you sent highlights some pretty impressive benefits of mindfulness, including reduced stress and anxiety, improved focus and concentration, and even increased emotional regulation.
That's amazing. It sounds like mindfulness could be a real game changer for managing stress. What about time management? I feel like that's a big one for a lot of people.
It is. When we feel overwhelmed by our to-do lists and deadlines, stress levels tend to skyrocket. But there are strategies we can implement to regain control over our time and reduce those feelings of overwhelm.
Like what? I'm always looking for ways to improve my time management skills.
Well, one simple but effective technique is prioritizing tasks. Identify the most important things that need to get done and focus on those first. Breaking down large tasks into smaller, more manageable chunks can also make them feel less daunting.
Oh, I'm a huge fan of to-do lists. There's something so satisfying about checking things off as I complete them. It helps me stay organized and on track.
And don't underestimate the power of scheduling. Blocking out time in your day for specific tasks can help you stay focused and avoid distractions. There are tons of great apps and tools out there to help you manage your time effectively.
Speaking of managing things effectively, you also highlighted the importance of setting boundaries. How does that tie into stress management?
Boundaries are essential for protecting your time and energy. They help you prioritize your own needs and avoid overcommitting yourself. Learning to say no to requests that drain you or don't align with your values is a key aspect of setting boundaries.
I think a lot of people struggle with saying no, myself included. We want to please everyone and avoid disappointing people, but that can lead to burnout and resentment.
It's true, but it's important to remember that saying no to one thing often means saying yes to something else, something that nourishes you, brings you joy, or helps you achieve your goals.
It's about prioritizing your own well-being. And from the research you've gathered, it seems like social support plays a crucial role in stress management.
Absolutely. Humans are social creatures, and we're wired for connection. Having a strong support system of friends, family, or even a therapist can make a world of difference when we're facing stressful situations.
It's like having a safety net, knowing that there are people you can turn to for help, encouragement, or even just a listening ear.
Exactly. Sharing your burdens with others can lighten the load and help you feel less alone. And sometimes just talking things through with someone you trust can help you gain clarity and perspective on a challenging situation.
So we've got deep breathing, progressive muscle relaxation, short breaks, grounding techniques, healthy lifestyle choices, mindfulness and meditation time management, setting boundaries, and building a strong support system. That's quite a toolkit.
It is. And remember, the key is to find what works best for you. Experiment with different techniques. See what resonates with you and create a personalized stress management plan that you can rely on.
It's amazing how many tools and techniques are out there, and it's empowering to know we have so many options for managing stress. But beyond those practical strategies, I noticed you also highlighted the importance of mindset. Can you talk a bit more about that?
Absolutely. It's not just about, changing our external circumstances, but also about shifting our perspective, our internal dialogue around stress. The research you sent really delves into this concept of reframing, which is essentially about viewing those challenges as opportunities for growth rather than threats. It's about finding the silver lining even when things feel tough.
I can see how that could be powerful. If we can change the way we think about stress, maybe we can lessen its negative impact on us. Do you have any specific examples of how we can reframe stressful situations?
Well, think about it this way. Imagine you're facing a tight deadline at work. Instead of viewing it as this overwhelming burden, you could reframe it as a challenge that will help you hone your time management skills and maybe even discover new efficiencies in your workflow. Or let's say you have a disagreement with a colleague. Rather than seeing it as a personal attack, you could reframe it as an opportunity to improve your communication skills. and find common ground.
It's like turning a potentially negative experience into a learning opportunity. And I notice that two concepts that come up a lot in relation to reframing are gratitude and resilience.
Yes, those are key components of a resilient mindset. Gratitude is about consciously focusing on the good things in your life, even when things are tough. The research you sent suggests that regular gratitude practice can actually rewire your brain, making you more attuned to positive experiences and less reactive to stress.
I've heard that before, but it's easy to forget to be grateful when you're feeling overwhelmed. Do you have any tips for cultivating gratitude in a way that feels authentic and not forced?
One simple practice is keeping a gratitude journal. Each day, write down a few things you're grateful for, big or small. It could be something as simple as a delicious meal, a sunny day, or a kind gesture from a stranger. Over time, you'll start to notice more and more things to be grateful for. And that shift in focus can have a profound impact on your overall well-being.
That makes sense. It's like training your brain to seek out the positive instead of dwelling on the negative. And what about resilience? That seems like an important quality to have when facing chronic stress.
Resilience is essentially the ability to bounce back from adversity. It's about developing coping skills, learning from your experiences, and building the inner strength to face challenges head-on.
So it's not about avoiding stress altogether, but rather about equipping ourselves to deal with it effectively.
Exactly. Resilient people don't see setbacks as failures. They see them as opportunities for growth and learning. They develop a toolbox of coping strategies. They nurture their support systems. And they focus on what they can control, even in challenging situations.
It sounds like resilience is something we can build over time, like a muscle that gets stronger with each challenge we overcome.
That's a great analogy. And the research you provided suggests that certain practices can foster resilience, such as mindfulness, self-compassion, and positive self-talk. It's about cultivating a mindset that believes in your ability to cope and adapt, even in the face of adversity.
So we've covered a lot of ground today, from the science of stress to practical techniques for managing it, and the power of mindset in building resilience. It's clear that you've been putting a lot of thought and effort into understanding stress and finding ways to mitigate its negative impact on your life.
And that's commendable. It's clear that you're taking proactive steps to prioritize your well-being. Remember, you've assembled a fantastic toolkit of strategies. The key now is to experiment, find what works best for you, and incorporate those practices into your daily life.
Absolutely. It's not about finding a quick fix, but rather about developing a sustainable approach to stress management. That will serve you well in the long run. As you continue exploring the resources you've gathered, consider this. How can you view your current challenges as opportunities for growth? What silver linings can you find? And how can you use those experiences to cultivate greater resilience and create a life that not only survives stress, but thrives in spite of it?
Those are excellent questions to ponder. And remember, you're not alone on this journey. There's a wealth of information and support available. And you have the power to create a life that feels more balanced, joyful, and fulfilling.
That's a great note to end on. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into stress management. We hope you found it insightful and empowering.